Just 6 months ago, we were talking about setting up a crash for our employees' children. And as we got talking, that got expanded further. And we said, why don't we start utilizing our hospital's unique opportunities, unique skills that we have to try and reach out to children who have special needs, they're neurodevelopmental, and help to make their lives better. And so here we are today, on the 8th of September, mid-morning, midweek, to be able to launch this. And I'm terribly indebted to all of you for having made this journey to launch this. Manipal Hospital is uniquely positioned in the sense that this is the only center in the state of Goa, apart from the Medical College of course, which has all diagnostic facilities for being able to evaluate small children who are unable to communicate. We would like to extend our services to all these centers to be able to send the children here for evaluation, and then the children can go back to their own centers and train there because it's so close to their homes. We would not like them to travel 30-40 kilometers and come to Manipal Hospital, but Manipal Hospital becomes a reference center, does all these evaluations, and then looks at them probably once in 6 months or a year to see how they're moving ahead. And today I have 3 unique people to help us start this journey. Pramod Acharya is Goa's voice, best known face, thinker, intellectual. Mrs. Hussain is a Kathak expert, an exponent of Kathak, and she will tell us how she works with children. Kellyanne, my old colleague, now is a counselor with the Hannan Center in Canada, which is probably the world's best known centers for special children.
All right, so what is speech and language development and how does it happen? So let's consider the analogy of a house. So when we begin building a house, you start with the foundation right at the beginning, which you can consider the grass and the road. You got to dig deep into the ground to lay that foundation really solid. So that part of in speech and language development is our social interaction, where we have to the first skills that a child learned would be to pay attention, to listen to what you're saying, to be able to have a back and forth engagement. So that part is your social interaction, which is the foundation of how children learn language. Then comes the bricks of the house. So the earlier bricks, the lower bricks are your early language skills, and then the bricks that go on top are the later language skills. So a child needs to have their early language skills really well developed before they can develop the higher language skills. Your higher language skills are things like answering why questions or inferences or predicting what could happen in the future. And children won't be able to do that unless they have their lower language skills developed. Then comes speech. Speech is the little chimney here on the top. So basically people can do fine without speech, but we still need our social interaction and language to be well developed in order to be an effective communicator. Without speech, a person can still communicate using sign language, actions, pointing, writing, picture communication. But speech is just something that completes the whole thing. And just like in this picture, it completes the house. I'll talk a little bit about autism. There's a lot of definitions out there about what autism is, but I really like this one because this is something that's devised by an autistic individual herself, and her name is Rebecca Burgess. A lot of autistic advocates a lot of autistic people are advocating for themselves. So they say that autism is not linear. You can't have someone who's less autistic or more autistic. Autism instead is a spectrum. There's so many different areas. All right, so the intervention types. These are the four main types of intervention. You have your behavioral intervention. The most common one is ABA therapy, which I think a lot of people have heard about. It mainly focuses on reducing undesired behaviors and increasing desired behaviors through reinforcement. We then have the educational approach. One such example is the TEACH, which mainly focuses on the fact that autistic children do really well with consistency and using visuals. This is an example of a visuals that I brought up here. I really like this one and use this a lot with my children, where I set the whole plan of the day on one side. As the child completes it, they take it off the little Velcro and they stick it on the completed side. So it gives them a sense of novelty that they get to be a part of their day. And have developmental, which is our traditional speech and language therapy, and occupational therapy. I think that occupational therapy is extremely important in intervention for autistic children, because a lot of autistic children have sensory integration difficulties, and I can see a couple of familiar faces here who I think will agree with me with that. And then we have social relational intervention, which basically focuses on building up those social skills. We at the Hannon Center do focus mainly on social relational. So the Hannon has a couple of workshops for parents as well as for teachers. So the most common one for parents is the It Takes Two to Talk, which is for young children who have a delayed receptive and expressive language. For children with autism, More Than Words is the most popular one, which is again for young children. If you're interested in knowing more about this, you can contact Soumya. She is the coordinator for all Hannon workshops in India. So when you're working with your child or when you're playing with your child, it's important to get down to your child's level. If your child is sitting on the ground, you sit on the ground as well. If they're sitting up on the chair, and if they're little, you can sit on the ground so that you're face to face with your child. So you imitate what your child is doing. If your child has a little car and they're rolling their car back and forth, you take your own car and you roll a car back and forth. Once the child realizes that you're imitating them, you will have their attention, and then you can keep that interaction going, which, like the house, if you remember, the social interaction, it's the foundation of learning language. Waiting is equally important. Wait after you ask a question. Wait after you give them an instruction. Or if you're playing with their car, wait to see how they respond to you. Be sure to use language that is at their level. If your child is little, if they're 2 and not yet talking, try using only single words to talk to them, to comment on what they're doing, to label what they're doing, so that it's easier for them to understand. If you use long sentences, it's probably just going to go over their head and they won't know what you're talking about. Repeat what you do. So that's another really important one. Repetition. Children learn mainly through repetition and through imitation. The more times you repeat a particular word in that situation or in different situations, the better their chances of learning it. And avoid screen time. This is one particular one. There's a ton of research that's done to show that the more screen time that a child has, the higher the link to a language delay, especially with autistic children, right? So from 0 to 2 years, the recommendation is no screen time at all. And above that, it's a maximum of ½ hour to 1 hour a day. And yep, that's about it. Thank you.
Subscribe Prudent social media channel and press bell icon for latest notifications.